Welcome, everybody. Today's a very special day. We've hit episode number 20 here at Placed in Shelter. I'll be your host, Ryan Catarozoli, again. And before we get into our special guest appearances today, it was sent to me several times in emails, text message, and phone calls that I completely missed doing the memes yesterday. So I have a double dose of memes today. So first off, this came from Jim Yount. Good morning, inmates. Does anyone know how much vodka goes in scrambled eggs? I ask my kids that every day. Here's another one, official sponsor of the longest spring break ever. I couldn't imagine just being like 21 years old with no responsibilities during this time. It'd be like, I don't know, heaven. And then last but not least, Charlene Brennis sent this one in. Not even sure what day it is anymore. It feels like it must be at least April 94th. So I thought that was very fitting. But today is a very, very special episode because in celebration of episode number 20, we're actually going to do a Hatco AMA, which is Ask Me Anything. So we have a couple of special guests today that I will have give brief introductions here in a second. I do have some questions that people sent into placedinshelter@gmail.com. But in the meantime, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So myself and Joe will be moderating the chat, and you guys can send your questions in live so we can put these guys on the spot. Now, again, I really enjoy my job here at Hatco, so please don't put that in jeopardy. Let's keep this somewhat related to food service or Hatco, and obviously appropriate. But with that, we can have some goofy, we can have some fun. It is a Friday. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we are going to go first to Mr. Dave Rolston. And Dave, give us a brief introduction, please.
Well, I've been at Hatco 25 years as of January of this past year. Started as a sales engineer. I'm an engineer by training. Started my career in engineering at GE in 1985 or so. And was lucky enough to find Hatco somewhere along the way. And 16 years ago, was lucky enough to become president after David Hatch retired.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And then our other special guest today is going to be Mr. Mark Pumphret. And Mark, if you want to jump on and give us another brief introduction.
Thanks, Ryan. You're doing an awesome job, by the way. Yes, I'm the Vice President of North American Sales. I'm fortunate. I've been here for now 8.5 years, and depending on how the rest of this video goes, I might even be here a little bit longer.
And why don't we just kick this right off, Mark? How are you enjoying Wisconsin?
Boy, you know, I've tried to blend in, and yes, I've grown the Wisconsin beard. Moving to Wisconsin on March 1st might not have been my smartest idea because they placed me in shelter and then promptly closed the office 14 days after I arrived.
Oh boy, that's crazy. Well, you know, a lot of you were also looking forward to seeing Mr. Mike Whiteley join us, who's our Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing. But due to some personal conflicts, he is not going to be able to join us at the moment. There is a chance that he might be joining late. So if he does hop on, please send some questions that way as well. But we're going to go ahead and kick this right off. Dave, this was a question that came in through email, and I think you'd be best to answer it. How many pounds of stainless steel or aluminum does Hatco use per year?
Not a clue, sorry.
All right, well, that was a quick and easy one. How about Mark? Who is the longest tenured employee in Hatco history?
In Hatco history, so I'm going to go with Charlene Brennis, but I'm not 100% sure. Dave Rolston?
I would have guessed that as well. I think she just celebrated 45 years, if I remember correctly.
I believe that's the number.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, here's another goofy one for you, Mark. If you laid all the glow rays that Hatco has sold end to end, how many miles would that go?
More than I could ride on my bike.
Okay, well, that's good because we don't even want you on a bike these days, I've heard. Here's a more serious one, Dave. Why was Sturgeon Bay picked as the plant location?
Well, I've never heard the official story, but I have a couple of suspicions. The Hatch family has had a home in Door County for years and years, long before the Hatco began in 1950. So I suspect it had to do, I always accuse David, of his family wanting tax deductible trips back and forth on the weekends between Milwaukee and Sturgeon Bay. So having a factory up there made every trip deductible. And second of all, they opened an industrial park up there in the 70s. And I suspect there was some tax benefits to occupying some space in that industrial park. And in hindsight, the labor force is awesome, very hardworking. So it's a great place to have a factory.
Awesome. Kind of a quick follow-up on that. Do you know the percentage of employment that we offer Sturgeon Bay? Are we one of the largest employers there?
We are the largest private employer. I believe that the county and the hospital system are both bigger than we are. And we're, say, 500 out of 9,000
Awesome.
people in the city. Now, we get a lot of employees that come up from southern Door County, Kewaunee and Algoma. And so it's probably a bigger population of 9,000 that we draw from.
Fantastic. Hey, Joe, how about we kick it over to you for a minute? Do you have any questions coming in live from chat?
You know, I did get one question, and it was, what is it about Honda minivans that make them superior to any other minivan? I know that the world is really wondering, Dave.
It's a toss-up between the Honda and the Toyota minivan. They're very similar. I'm partial to Hondas. I'm on my fourth, I believe. My wife had one years ago as well. So I've been in a Honda minivan ever since I gave up my VW Rabbit GTI, which I bought straight out of college. So it's I never have had the Porsche that I always dreamed of, and now honestly I don't want one. I put my money in motorcycles.
Wow. Any other ones over there, Joe?
So we got one from Paul's iPhone, and he's asking what our biggest selling SKU is. So I'm guessing that he's probably wondering what our top selling product is. So answer that as you can.
So I'm going to go with one of the, strip heaters as a whole is without question by unit our number one selling SKU, I believe. But I'm actually going to go with option number 2, and that would be the Lou Annick creation of our ITQ toasters. Those have been rocking out the door, and he's sold so many of them that we've got our own assembly line just for that product.
Wow. Awesome. So, I'm going to take this one back to Dave. One of the questions that came in via email is, during the plant tour, you see the cost of many manufacturing machines. Do we have an idea of what the total value of those machines are combined?
Not off the top of my head. I could guess. I think it's probably in the range of $25 million. I mean, if you include the paint line, which has a sign on it, we have the room of the paint room has a sign on it as well.
Yeah.
The lasers themselves are $1 million a piece. The laser welder we just bought is $1 million for. So
I love that we reinvest in our company and our people. Hey, Mark, here's one for you. This is kind of an interesting question, and I think you could probably get pretty close on the answer. How many total miles does the Hatco sales team cover in a normal year? A normal year.
Yeah, I could count it on one hand right now for the current miles that we're all doing, because it's a big fat 0, right? Boy, I would bet you in total miles the Hatco sales team puts on is in flight miles. I bet you you're 1.3 million, probably 1.4 million when you consider the number of 100,000-mile flyers we have in an annual year.
I bet you're pretty darn close. Let's see here. This one was actually for Mike, but he's not here. So I'm going to throw this one out there and see if either of you can answer it. What is the oldest working booster heater that Hatco has found to date?
there is one down in our training center that we got back recently from a church. I believe it was in Dykesville, and I think it was from 1953 or 57, something like that. And it was still in operation. The only reason they got rid of it is because the Hobart dishwasher that it was paired with, they could no longer get parts for. So they decided to replace the whole thing, both units.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, Joe, how's Chad been doing over there? We got some new questions coming in?
You know what? That's perfect timing. I just got another booster heater related questions. And this came in from Lou Annick III, and he asked, has Hatco sold enough booster water heaters to heat the volume of Lake Michigan?
I think we're
I
short
would
by
guess
one.
yes.
Short by one. Now, hold on. I think Dan Frigo's in the chat. So how deep is Lake Michigan?
It's 932 feet, if I remember correctly.
For those of you that have attended Hatco U, that may be something you know, and if you plan to attend in the future, it might be something you want to remember. And speaking of Hatco U, I've got a good one here, and actually, I think both of you should answer this question. Perhaps Dave first, Mark second. If Hatco U had the one Hall of Fame, who would be the first inductee?
Well, I certainly know. I'm judging whether it's appropriate to talk about it.
Perhaps choose a more appropriate inductee.
I fondly remember the gentleman who went for a walk and got lost and lost his glasses and wandered around Sturgeon Bay for most of the night before he finally found his way back to Sydney Harbor.
Fantastic. That's a good one. Mark, do you have a favorite or an inductee?
You know, I'd probably vote for one of two different people. There's the one that slept in my minivan all of day 2 and then flew back to some foreign country. And the other would be those that choose to sleep basically on park benches during the night.
Oh, there were two guys, I believe they were reps many years ago, who came up and they were out cruising the town and they were telling people they were David Hatch's sons and trying to make the most of that pickup line. That was humorous.
Well, you know, on that note, actually, Brian, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back in. I see from the chat function that Charlene Brenny's weighed in and corrected me on the answer of the longest tenured employee because he happens to still be our chairman of the board, and that would be Mr. David Hatch.
I was saving that one for a correction at the end of the episode, but yeah, that appears to be the correct answer.
Yes, at the end, where did we go wrong? That's fantastic. How about this one? How many different logos has Hatco had over the years? Dave?
I don't think we've ever deviated from the red oval with our name in it. The wording underneath has changed slightly over the years.
Okay.
Nothing less than the best, and there's others.
But the logo itself has pretty much stayed true since the inception.
I believe so.
That's what I thought too.
Charlie would know better than I can. She can text in.
There was a box around it originally, she said. That's interesting because I would have said the same thing you did. I thought from everything I've looked up, it was the same. Awesome. Joe, let's kick it back over to Chad. Any more live questions today?
So I did just get another one, and I guess I'd like to hear maybe all three of your guys' opinion on this. And it's, if you could host a Hatco U dinner at any restaurant, regardless of location, where would it be?
Mark, I love that restaurant you took us to was it Scottsdale, where we were up on the mountain and they opened the curtains and we were in the chef's table room looking into the kitchen. What was the name of that?
That was the Sanctuary, Elements at the Sanctuary Resort.
Jim actually popped in and gave the name of the restaurant before Mark could finish. So obviously very highly regarded.
For those that haven't been, go. It's really great.
My answer is really easy, and Dan Frigo is going to make fun of me, but Volare in Chicago. I'm Italian. It's close quarters. I don't know how acceptable it's going to be when we reopen the country because you're literally sitting on each other's laps, but there's something about that place that just makes me feel like I'm at grandma and grandpa's house on the weekend and everyone's family and we're all eating family style and having fun, having drinks. So I absolutely love it there.
The most memorable meal we ever have had was it was a rep council. It had to be 15 years ago in Green Bay. It was a big production and every rep was there. So there were 130 people in the room and somebody threw a roll. And after that, it turned into an all-out roll battle. And waitresses were bringing us extra baskets of rolls. And I'll never forget, our waitress showed up with a new basket of rolls and she says, "Who can I hit?" And I looked around the room and David Hatch was standing up in the middle of the room with his arms up trying to calm things down. And I said, "Try him." And she nailed him right in the side of the head. He shook his head, he got down on the floor and he crawled out of the room. And it was just an all-out battle until somebody threw a fruit tart. And the fruit tart was messy, and it kind of ended everything.
I take it we haven't had dinner there since.
No.
To answer your question overall, and Dave just kind of nailed it, would have to do Nightingales.
We've had a few roll battles at the Nightingale as well.
And they didn't kick us out. We're still allowed there.
Big tips.
Awesome. So, we're actually coming up on time here. I don't want to keep everybody too long, but I have a couple of kind of more serious work-related ones. So, Dave, for you, what's your favorite project that you've worked on as your time as an engineer with Hatco? And that might be the most interesting, or maybe the one you're most passionate, or maybe even the most successful.
There were a bunch of KFC projects that were successful, but the one I remember most vividly that I'm not sure it was ever successful, Hardee's had a lot of stainless sandwich chutes that were made by fabricators, and they wanted to have us rebuild them from the inside out. So we had to go in, cut the insides out of them, leave the structure there, and basically drop in a Hatco sandwich chute inside of it. And I can remember chiseling the insides out of one to build the prototype. So it was pretty memorable.
This is a really good question. It came in from Brent over at Professional Reps. And it said, what is the product that Hatco is developing, assuming that we can talk about it, that you're most excited about?
There's so many cool products that are coming to us, and thank you from our representatives telling us the voice of the customer and what their needs are for today, right? This new world that we're in. And, frankly, the one item that I'm so excited about that is gaining in volume every day is the new Locker to Go system. Every phone call I'm on, or Zoom call as the world may be, every customer is asking about the Locker system.
Fantastic. And then, as a follow-up, I think this is a good closing question that perhaps both of you want to weigh in on. And this also came from Brent. And it said, once we get clear of the immediate impact of COVID-19 and what's going on right now, what do you think the biggest change we're going to see in Hatco's category of food service industry?
I don't have a clear vision of that because we're so well situated now for both self-serve and service lines and serving lines. And I just wrote an email to the employees yesterday saying, I think that a lot of our equipment can be modified from self-serve to a serving line application fairly easily and quickly with parts that we already have. A lot of times options like buffet warmers already have an option to put a front on them. Sandwich chutes have options for closing off the front. Flavor savers can be turned around so the door is accessible by the server instead of the client. So it's hard for me to see what we're going to do a lot differently because we have so much flexibility now. It'll be really interesting to see how quickly people go back to their old habits of, not worrying about how close they are to others and not really worrying about what they touch. Because I just don't think it's a long-term thing that we can, as humans, can tolerate being that far apart. I mean, just having lunch today in a fairly small group, we had to go out of our way to make sure we were sitting 6 feet apart, and it was annoying.
Yeah, we are very, very social beings. It's very awkward for us. Mark, anything else to weigh in?
Dave, I agree with Dave of it's really hard to say because I don't know that since so few places are open, I don't know that we really know what is 100% needed. But, I drop back to this. I was actually working on something yesterday and I realized, operators thinking about our 3CS sink sanitizers, I think back to my days in the kitchen and, often people didn't care so much about that final step in a 3-pot sink. Well, guess what? We're going to be thinking a lot more about that. We're going to be checking to make sure that the incoming water temperature to our dish machines is where it needs to be. And do we have the right size booster for it? And I even wonder, will low temp dish machines, even though they have a sanitizing rinse at the end, is that really what people are going to be comfortable with moving forward? It's such an unknown.
Once again, we really appreciate you guys joining us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. So any closing remarks, Mark or Dave?
This has been the longest month and a half of my life, and I hope the next month and a half isn't so long and that we start to get back to normal. This will go down in my working career as the weirdest thing I've ever had to deal with. I wish I had retired a year earlier, but missed the boat.
Mark, last comments?
Well, he just teed that one up easy for me. Dave, thanks for not retiring. We need you now more than ever. And, hey, we need to hear from you, the end use customer. What are your needs? Please let your representative, your dealer, your consultant know what are the new needs for today. And thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you guys again. And here's everyone's favorite part of the show. I won't forget today. I'm going to share my screen again, and we still have a couple more of memes for you here. This one actually came in from Mark Pumphret, and it said, "It's been a blessing being at home with the wife these last 4 weeks. We've caught up on everything I've done wrong in the last 15 years. Mine's closer to 10 years than 15, but I completely understand." Here's another one. "We're thinking of planting a garden in case the food shortage gets worse. Anyone have any Snickers or Cheetos seeds? Because that's about all we eat in this household." And last, finally got my sink fixed. And whoever did that, I need to know who your plumber is, where you're tapping that wine from, because we need one of those in our house as well. With that, that's going to wrap up today's 20th episode. Thank you so much again to our special guests. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. It's really been a success. I really appreciate everyone being here. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can always join us live and be a part of the discussion. 3 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Just utilize the link in the description. If you hit the bell notification in the corner, you can always be notified when Hatco posts new videos. And let us know you're enjoying the content by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.